Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second bonus. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second bonus, shall we?
Today's first encounter. My experiences began many years ago as a kid growing up in the country, running the fields and woods, exploring the creeks, lakes, and rivers. It was 1979. I had just turned 11 when I had my first encounter. I suppose I probably shouldn't say my encounter, as it wasn't my encounter, not exactly. It was my aunt's. But it was my first experience. My encounter would happen years later. I was born the middle child of 3. My brother was 3 years older than me, my sister a few years younger. I didn't spend much time with either of them growing up. They had their friends and I had mine. We grew up in the country on my granddad's original Cherokee allotment land in the northeast Oklahoma. It was 10 miles outside of town, but many neighbors were nearby and most of them seemed to have kids. There was a whole pack of us wildlings that ran the woods, swam the creeks, and ripped up the dirt roads, terrorizing local livestock with our summer excursions while enjoying every ounce of summer we could squeeze in before school started back up. One such popular venue, the Evansville Creek, lie to the north, less than a mile away from my house. Summers would find most neighborhood kids at a spot along the banks we referred to as the Rock Hole. We called it that because of a massively gray rock that sat on the far side. You could often see the top of the enormous gray slabbed rock as it ran along about 10 feet parallel with the opposite bank. The only time the rock was not visible was when there had been a lot of rain. We would swim over to it, climb on top, and jump off. The hole in the middle of it ran front to back under the surface, and we would dive under and swim through to the other side. It was a rite of passage, and it was more than a little scary in the murky creek water. It was our favorite place to be during the scorching hot summer days, and we looked forward to it every year. I hung out a lot with my cousin, who lived nearby. He was my age, and we spent most of our summers together when we were kids, up until his parents bought a farm and built a new house further away. We couldn't wait for school to be out for summer break because we had big plans to get together and camp out at the creek, fish, swim the entire time. It wasn't until we were out of school that we learned that our parents had other plans for us. Our dads were brothers and came from a family of 13. 11 brothers and sisters, 2 girls, 9 boys, and each had kids. All but one, anyway. To say that I had a large family is an understatement. My dad was a master carpenter by trade, and most of my uncles worked in construction. One of my uncles was a heavy equipment operator and ran dozers and backhoes. He had an excavation work along with my cousin Steve. My dad and my uncles could build a house from the ground up, framing to roofing. They did it all. Times were different back then. In those days, men could do just about anything. They had to be self-sufficient. My dad could rebuild an engine, plant and harvest crops, raise livestock, train horses, and hunt and fish like Davy Crockett. They had to be able to do those things just to survive. He was one of the most competent men I had ever known. He was my hero. I can't ever remember a time that he ever missed a day of work. He was old school. No matter how he felt, he got up every day and went to work. He had no choice. There were times when I knew he didn't feel well or had suffered some kind of injury, but he still managed to drag himself to work that day. He didn't have health care other than the Indian hospital, and he hated to go. That meant time he missed work. Summer arrived that year by entirely skipping spring, or it sure seemed that way to us kids. One day it was 60 degrees, the next it was in the 90s. My big plan to spend much of the time with my cousin, as I could at the creek, fell by the wayside the first morning of summer vacay. Our small two-bedroom house was light green with a dark brown roof that faced east. When my dad started building it, I was only 3 or 4 years old, and we had just moved back to Kansas City. I still remember playing nearby while he worked on it. I was about 5 years old when we actually moved in. I shared a bedroom with my brother back then. It was small but adequate for a couple of scrawny boys. A dresser with a mirror sat against the wall and a set of bunk beds opposite. My brother got the top bunk, of course. He was older, bigger, and just a bit ornier than I was. He got his way most of the time. Our bedroom was pitch black on the morning my dad woke us up. He was never gentle about it. He'd open the door, flip on the overhead light, and growl, "Get up!" So we got up. We never lingered. We jumped out, got dressed, and received our marching orders for the day. I suppose the thing that passed through my mind that morning was that he had a list of chores for us to do while he was at work. That was typical. So I wasn't too concerned about anything new. Clean our room, take care of feeding and watering, then stay outside. Oh, and don't wake up Mom, who worked the night shift. Of course, it also went without saying rule number 1, don't get in trouble. Easy enough. Usually, when I'd walk into the living room that morning, Dad was already heading out the door. I remember standing there, staring at him, wondering if I was expected to know what I was supposed to do. At 6 in the morning, I was a bit confused. Maybe he thought we still had school and was making sure we didn't miss the bus. I was surprised when he said, "Let's go." I was even more surprised to see my brother getting on his bicycle and pedaling down the dirt road. Did I do something to get in trouble and couldn't remember? Am I being punished? I was too scared to ask out loud. It wasn't that he was mean. He wasn't. He was just a no-nonsense type of guy. In his communication, but not mean. Unless you did something wrong, then he became a bear. When I got into the truck and watched my brother ride away, I got up enough courage to ask, "Where's Mike going?" Dad said he has a job this summer working on the other side of the creek. I learned later that he was doing yard work and gardening for an elderly lady. "You're going to help me with a job site." Oh man, I remember thinking, that sucks. I had big plans. I wanted to go to the creek, ride my bike, work on my fort down by the pond, hang out. Anything but work with my dad. I did feel a little better about the trip when he told me my cousin would be working with us too. Though not what I wanted to hear, it did make me feel a little better about the situation. I had often been to job sites during the summer, but never had to work. Not really. Cleaning up scraps was my regular job, and I always got to keep most of them. We used the scraps of wood to build our fort. It was rickety, dangerous, but we didn't care. We were indestructible. We arrived at the job site within a half an hour. It was a typical house that my dad contracted with the housing authority of the Cherokee Nation to build. I saw my cousin was already there and dragging out equipment from the bed of my uncle's truck. Dad told me to get out and give him a hand, then come inside because he had more things for me to do. I hopped out and pitched in. We had it unloaded in no time, and our dads began working on the house. Even though they asked us to do little things throughout the day, we got a lot done. We got a lot of downtime for just hanging out, being kids. It was more fun than I thought it would be. After lunch that day, a man who lived across the road from where our dads were working hurried over, looking for my uncle. I remember the time because we had already eaten lunch and we were working again. "Where's your dad's?" the guy asked. We could tell something was wrong from the worried look and his demeanor. "They're inside," my cousin said, pointing toward the kitchen area of the new house. I think my dad was in the back running a saw. We figured if they wanted us to know anything, they'd come and get us, so we continued playing. A few minutes later, I heard my dad say, "Get in the truck." We didn't hesitate. I remember the worried look on their faces, but I don't recall if my dad explained anything to me on the way. He did say that we had to get to their house right away because something happened to my aunt. My aunt was a housewife and lived in a remote area about 20 miles outside of town called England Howell. She was at home with my cousin's little sister, who was about 8 years old, and something happened, and she called the neighbor next door to the house our dads were working on to ask him to send my uncle home. This was in the late 70s, so there was no cell phones. Everyone had landlines, most of which were party lines, so everyone knew everyone's business in the county. We hurried to the door when we got to the house, but my aunt had locked it. All the lights were off, and there was no sign of my aunt or cousin. My uncle used his key to open the door, ran to the back bedroom, and found them hiding. They all came back into the living room, but my uncle now had 2 rifles in his hand, handed one to my dad. My aunt was crying and scared and shaking. My cousin was hanging on to her mom and wouldn't let go. We all went into the living room to listen to her story. I was hanging out laundry in the backyard when I saw it. At first, I thought it might have been a cow standing in the pasture, but as it got closer, I could tell that it was walking upright like a man. I thought it could be someone looking for their cows, so I kept hanging laundry. I could see the fear still in her eyes as she spoke. She was visibly shaking. Anyone that knew my aunt knows that she does not lie or make things up. She's a devout Christian lady and raised kids not to lie. I believed her. I'd look up and it would be a little closer, like it was watching me. That made me nervous, but I wasn't afraid. It was still quite a ways off, so I couldn't make out any features. She swallowed hard and gasped for air. Just listening to her made me a little scared because she kept looking out of the window like it might be lurking outside, whatever it was. I reached into the laundry basket, hung another shirt on the line, and noticed that it was not there anymore. I looked around the pasture and didn't see it. Then I heard a terrible racket coming from the barn. I've never heard anything like it before. I turned and looked, thinking someone was stealing a chicken or something. I still do not believe what I saw. The thing was in the barnyard and had caught up one of the calves and slung it over its shoulders, stepped over the fence and ran into the woods. "Who was it? Did you get a good look at it?" My uncle said. "It wasn't a him, it was an it," she exclaimed. "It was covered in black hair from head to toe. It was huge. It was so big it had to duck down through the barn door. It turned and looked right at me. The barn door was 7 feet tall. It was open, so the calves could go in and out of this little corral." She almost passed out again just from telling the story. I remember the look of fear on her face, and she shook while telling us what happened. I didn't think she was lying then, and I never questioned her story since, especially after what we found at the barn later. My uncle looked over at my dad. "If it got one of my calves, we better go see if we can find it." "Which way did it run off?" my dad asked. "The same way it came, down the back pasture into the woods. It carried that calf all over its shoulders like it was a rag doll. Its face, oh my God, the eyes, they were terrible. I was scared stiff, scared out of my wits. As soon as I could, I ran inside and locked all the doors. It grunted at me a few more times before disappearing back the way it came. We hid in the bedroom until you guys got here. I didn't know if it was coming back. We hurried to the barn, leaving my aunt in the house. When we got there, my uncle counted the calves, and sure enough, one was missing. But there was no damage to the fence. The gate was closed. We did, however, notice some strange footprints. We hunted the rest of the day, but never found the creature or the calf again. I don't remember much else about that day, and we never talked about it again, and eventually it faded away, and was all but forgotten. And that was my first experience and it would not be my last, and I was fascinated. Today's second part of the upload is going to be a little different. It is a theory that I have, something that I've thought about and combined different theories of mine. And that's why sometimes I say, hey, just if you don't like one thing out of one theory, take what you like, save it in your notebook, in your brain, wherever, and then add that theory to another one to create or theorize something that makes sense, something that really has a lot of weight to it and could possibly be what the key is. So with all of this Doulce and Dumb's information, and then as of late I've been thinking about Nightmare Hall, which is level 5, 6, where they describe cryptids. They describe crawlers. They've described insectoids, bat-like creatures, dogmen, large hominids like Bigfoot, strange mimics. And those are all things that have been talked about, people have seen. We don't know where they come from, yet there's a level in these underground bases that contain them. And then we get people who work for private organizations that are hired by government or government employees that not only come to my channel, but others. I can count numerous other channels that have had so-called government agents or contractors or whatever who have claimed to have fought in these creatures. And it's almost like they want to contain the problem. Now, I was talking to my oldest daughter a couple of days ago about the SCP, excuse me. Secure, Contain, Protect. Now, we have talked about these movies and TV shows and stories like creepypastas and other things like that that just are very similar to what we are hearing from real people. Who's to say there isn't some sort of organization like Victor worked for that really hunts these creatures and brings them back to an underground base? Just a theory. But then I started looking through that email that I got with all of the information on Doulce and other very strange things. And I tried to email this person back, and the email address is no longer available. It's just gone. So I'm pretty sure that whatever this person sent me is 100% true. Because every time I share it on the channel, and then I look into more things, it's pretty mind-blowing how accurate it is. This may be the proof, and may be what we need to, not need, but this may be the proof that the government may not have created these things, but they contain them. And then when they get loose, they hunt them. It's pretty scary. But check this out. February through March 1991. The Deep Dark Secret at Doulce. Bill Hamilton and Tal Levesque. If planet Earth is to be the central battleground or staging ground for a final cosmic battle between galactic powers, and if the United States is one of the major areas on Earth where the final outcome will be decided, and since the Doulce, New Mexico area is considered to be the major basing site where human-alien collaboration and or conflict is taking place, then we should focus our attention on what is going on deep beneath this small southwestern town. More than any other area in the United States, if not the world, this small town has been the epicenter for nearly every form of paranormal activity one can imagine, including UFO sightings, UFO landings, abductions, implantation, human and animal mutilation, PSI warfare studies, secret government/alien interaction, United States constitutional government versus alien agenda conflicts, reptilian sightings, cryptozoological or bioengineering phenomenon. This was the general area where the famous Cabot, half cat, half rabbit, was captured. Underground bases, conspiracy scenarios, alien infiltration, deep cavern phenomenon, super high-tech activity, MIB encounters. In fact, a higher concentration of such activities has been evident in the vicinity of Doulce than any other area in the world, to the point that its inhabitants of this town, for the most part, resigned themselves into acknowledging, although not necessarily accepting, the reality of such activity, whether they like it or not. Bill Hamilton and Tal Levesque take us inside the Hadean-like labyrinths deep within this underground mega-complex through the eyes of those who have actually been there. Doulce is a sleepy little town in northern New Mexico. Its population is about 900, and it's located 7,000 feet on the Jicarilla Apache Indian Reservation. There is one major motel and just a few stores. It's not a resort town, and it's not bustling with activity. Yet, according to few outsiders, Doulce harbors a deep, dark secret. That secret is said to be harbored deep below the tangled brush of the Archuleta Mesa. That secret involves a joint government alien biogenetic laboratory designed to carry out bizarre experiments on humans and animals. New Mexican State Police Officer Gabe Valdez was drawn into the mysteries of Doulce when called out to investigate a mutilated cow on the Manuel Gomez Ranch in a pasture 13 miles east of Doulce. Gomez had lost 4 cattle to mutilations between 76 and 78. When a team of investigators, which included Tom Adams, arrived from Paris, Texas to examine the site of the carcass, curious as to how cattle are being selected by the mysterious mutilators, an interesting experiment was conducted on July 5, 1978 by Valdez, Gomez, and retired scientist Howard Burgess. The three penned up about 120 of Gomez's beef cattle and moved them through a squeeze chute under an ultraviolet light. They found a glittery substance on the right side of the neck, the right ear, and the right leg. Samples of the affected hides were removed, as well as controlled samples from the same animals. Some investigators attributed the mutilations to aliens from UFOs. Sightings of strange lights and other area phenomenon have been reported in many areas where cows have been found at the time of reported mutilation. UFOs have been seen frequently near Doulce. I arrived in Doulce on April 19th, 1988, to visit with Gabe Valdez and inquire about sightings, the mutes, and rumors of an underground alien base. There was still snow on the ground by the Best Western motel I had checked in to visit Valdez. He had made an appointment to see me at 9:30 p.m. I found Gabe to be a very congenial host as he offered to show us around the roads of Doulce that night and point out various locations where he had found mutilated cows or had seen strange aerial lights. He made the astounding statement that he is still seeing unidentified craft at the rate of 1 every 2 days. We took a look at the Gomez Ranch, the road by the Navajo River, and the imposing Archuleta Mesa. Gabe had found landing tracks and crawler marks near the site of the mutes. Gabe was convinced that scientist Paul Benowitz of Thunder Scientific Labs in Albuquerque was definitely on the right track in his attempts to locate an underground alien facility in the vicinity of Doulce. I had first heard of Paul Benowitz in 1980 when my friend Walter called me from Albuquerque and told me he had been working with Paul on electronic instruments. Walter said Paul had not only photographed UFOs but had established a communication link with their underground base at Doulce. Benowitz had first come to prominence during the August 1980 sighting of UFOs over the Manzano Weapons Storage Area in Kirtland Air Force Base. A Kirtland Air Force incident report dating 1980, October 28th, mentions that Benowitz had taken film of UFOs over Kirtland. Paul was president of Thunder Scientific Labs adjacent to Kirtland. Benowitz gave a briefing in Albuquerque detailing how he saw aliens on a video screen. The aliens were transmitting signals from the base underneath the Archuleta Mesa. Researcher William Moore claims the government agents became interested in Paul and his activities and were trying to defuse him by pumping as much disinformation through him as he could absorb. Whether Paul's communication with supposed aliens at Doulce's base was part of a disinformation campaign is unclear. If one were to believe that Paul is the single source of the reports on Doulce's facility, then it could also be a tactical maneuver to discount and discredit Paul's allegation of an underground base if such reports were meant to remain secret. Then the actual disinformation maneuver would be to disinform the public and not a single individual. In a report entitled Project Beta, Paul states that he had spent 2 years tracking alien crafts, that he had constant reception of video from alien ship and underground base. Video screen that he had established constant direct communications with the aliens using a computer and a form of hexadecimal code with graphics and printout, and claims to have used aerial and ground photography to locate the alien ship launch ports and charged beam weapons. Paul claimed that the aliens were devious, employed deception, and did not adhere to agreements. Paul and Walter were working on a weapon that could counter the aliens. Quotes, "Some will think at this point that we have crossed over from the land of the clear thinking concerning anomalous phenomenon to the land of science fiction, but let us remember that bizarre phenomenon such as UFO represent may have its roots in a bizarre reality. It is expected to be bizarre at first, but as we continue our studies, we will evolve to understand it." Paul Benowitz had investigated the case of abductees Manera Henson of New Mexico, who reported have been taken to the underground facility in 1980, Krista Tilton of Oklahoma, who reported that she had an experience of missing time in July of 87, where she had been abducted by 2 small gray aliens transported into their craft to a hillside location where she encountered a man dressed in a red military-like jumpsuit. She was taken into a tunnel through computerized checkpoints displaying security cameras She reported having been taken on a transit vehicle to another area where she stepped on a scale-like device facing a computer screen. After the computer issued her identification card, she was told by her guide that she had just entered level 1 of a 7-level underground facility. Krista goes on relating how she was eventually taken to level 5. She reports having seen alien craft, little gray alien entities, and some areas she had passed through. Krista reports going into one large room where she saw large tanks with computerized gauges hooked to the tanks and large arms that extended from some of the tubes down into the tanks. She noticed a humming sound, smelled formaldehyde, and was under the impression that some of the liquid was being stirred into the tanks. Krista had made drawings of much of what she had witnessed during her abduction. These tanks, Krista talks about, were depicted in a set of controversial papers called the Doulce papers. These papers were allegedly stolen from Doulce underground facility, along with 30 black and white photos and a videotape by a mysterious security officer who claims to have worked at Doulce up until '79, when he decided that time had come to part company with his employers. The rest of the story is about the security officer who has met with one of us in an attempt to tell us the truth about aliens and the so-called U.S. government and the Doulce base. He is announcing his intentions to come out of hiding and present a soft and hard evidence of his claims. It will be up to you to decide whether this evidence constitutes, in addition to a growing proof that the government cover-up exists. In late 1979, Thomas Costello could no longer cope with the awesome reality that he had confronted. As a high-level security officer at a joint alien U.S. government underground base near Doulce, he learned of and had seen disturbing things. After much inner conflict, he decided to desert the facility and take various items with him. Using a small camera, he took over 30 photos of the area within a multi-level complex. He removed a security videotape from the control center, which showed various security camera views of hallways, labs, aliens, and U.S. government personnel. He also collected documents to take with them. Then, by shutting off the alarm and camera system in one of the over 100 exits to the surface, he left the facility with the photos, videos, and documents. These originals were hidden after 5 sets of copies were made. Thomas was ready to go into hiding, but when he went to pick up his wife and young child, he found a van and government agents waiting. He had been betrayed by Kay Lomas, a fellow worker, who is instrumental in the kidnapping of his wife and child. The agents wanted what Thomas had taken from the facility, for which he would get his wife and son back. It became apparent to him that his wife and son had been used in biological experiments and were not going to be returned unharmed. That was a little over 10 years ago. How did Thomas get involved in this covert intrigue? Thomas is now about 50 years old. At the time of this article, it was written in '91. He's dead now, guys. When he was in his mid-20s, he received top-secret training in photography at the underground facility in West Virginia. For 7 years, he worked for the Rand Corporation in Santa Monica, California. In '77, he was transferred to Doulce. He bought a home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and worked Monday through Friday, with weekends off, at all Doulce personnel commute via deep underground tube shuttle systems. At the time, one of us, Tal, was working security in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and was privately investigating UFO sightings, animal mutilations, Masonic and Wicca groups in the area. Thomas had a mutual friend who came to Santa Fe in '79 to visit us both. This individual would later view photos, videotapes, and documents from Doulce. Drawings were made from what was seen and circulated later in the UFO research community as the Doulce papers. Thomas alleges that there were over 18,000 of these short grays at Doulce. He has also seen tall reptilian humanoids. One of us, Tal, had come face to face with a 6-foot-tall reptoid, which had materialized in the house. The reptoid showed interest in research maps of New Mexico and Colorado, which were on my wall. The maps were full of colored pushpins and markers to indicate sites of animal mutilations, caverns, and locations of high activity of UFO, repeated flight paths, abduction sites, ancient ruins, and suspected alien underground bases. The security level goes up as one descends to lower levels. Thomas had an Ultra 7 clearance. He knew of 7 sublevels, but there may have been more. Most of the aliens were on levels 5, 6, and 7, alien housing on level 5. The only sign in English was one over a tube shuttle station hallway which read Los Alamos. Connections go from Doulce to Page, Arizona facility, then to an underground base below Area 51 in Nevada. Tube shuttles go to and from Doulce facility below Teos, New Mexico, Doulce, New Mexico, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Creed, Colorado, Sandia, and then on to Carlsbad, New Mexico. There's a vast network of tube shuttle connections under the U.S. which extends into a global system of tunnels and sub-cities. At Doulce Base, most of the signs on the doors and hallways are in an alien symbol language and a universal symbol system understood by humans and aliens. Thomas stated that after a second level, everyone is weighed in the nude and then given a uniform. Visitors are given off-white uniforms. The weight of the person is put on a computer ID card each day. Any change in weight is noted. Any change in over 3 pounds requires a physical exam and x-ray. The uniforms are jumpsuits with a zipper. In front of sensitive areas are scales built into the floor and by doorways and the door control panels. An individual places his computer ID card into a slot, then presses a numerical code and buttons. The personnel's card must match with the weight and code or the door will not open. Any discrepancy in weight will summon security. No one is allowed to carry anything into sensitive areas. All supplies are put on a conveyor belt and x-rayed. The same method is used in leaving sensitive areas. All elevators are controlled magnetically, but there is no elevator cables, magnetic system inside the walls of the elevator shaft. There are no normal electrical controls. Everything is controlled by advanced magnetics, including the lighting. There is no regular light bulbs. The tunnels are illuminated by phosphorus units with broad, structureless emission bands. Some deep tunnels use a form of phosphorus pentoxide to temporarily illuminate certain areas. The aliens won't go near those zones for reasons unknown. The studies on level 4 include human aura research as well as all aspects of telepathy, hypnosis, and dreams. Thomas says that they know how to separate the bioplasmic body from the physical body and place an alien entity force matrix within a human body after removing the soul life force matrix of the human. Level 6 is privately called Nightmare Hall. It holds the genetic labs. Here are experiments done on fish, seals, birds, mice that are vastly altered from their original form. There are multi-armed and multi-legged humans in several cages and vats of humanoid bat-like creatures, deceased Mothmen, or those creatures that John Keel refers to in his books, The Mothman Prophecies, up to 7 feet tall. The aliens have taught the humans a lot about genetics, things both useful and dangerous. Tal then describes something which might seem unbelievable if it were not for the fact dozens of other sources seem to confirm it. This discovery is reported one of the real reasons for the invitation of the Doulce Wars. Level 7 is the worst. Row after row of thousands of human mixture remains in cold storage. Here too are embryos of humanoids in various stages of development. Also, many human children remain in storage vats. Who are or were these people? People who worked in the labs, abductees taken to the base, people who assisted in construction, intelligent personnel, NSA, CIA, and UFO inner-Earth researchers. This information is meant for those who are seriously interested in the Doulce base. For your own protection, be advised to use caution while investigating this complex. The Greys, the Reptoids, the winged Draco species are highly analytical and technologically oriented. They have had ancient conflicts with the L-humans and may be staging here for future conflict. Principal government organizations involved with mapping human genetics, the so-called Genome Project, are the Department of Energy, the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and, of course, Doulce underground labs run by the DOE. Is the alien and human biotech being used to nurture and serve us, or is it being used to control and dominate us? Why have UFO abductees been used in genetic experiments? It was when Thomas encountered humans in cages on level 7 of the Doulce facility that things finally reached a climax for him. He says, I frequently encountered humans in cages, usually dazed or drugged, but sometimes they cried and begged for help. We were told they were hopelessly insane and involved in high-risk drug tests to cure insanity. We were told never to speak to them at all. At the beginning, we believed the story. Finally, in 1978, a small group of workers discovered the truth. That began the Doulce Wars. We may find it hard and impalpable to digest or even believe Thomas's story, and why should we even give it a hearing at all? Probably for no other reason than the fact that many others are coming out and telling bizarre stories, and the fact that there may be a terrible truth hidden behind the continuing phenomenon of UFO sightings, abductions, and animal mutilations. Our government intelligence agencies have had an ongoing watchful eye on all UFO activities for many decades now. This bizarre phenomenon must have a bizarre explanation. We may be only one outpost in a vast interstellar drama. Recently, researcher John Anderson went to Doulce, New Mexico to see if there is anything to be reported. He says that he arrived in town coincidentally to see a caravan of cars and McDonnell Douglas mini lab in a van going up a rural road near the town. He followed them to a fenced-in compound where he waited to see further development. Suddenly, 6 UFOs descended rapidly over the compound, hovered long enough for him to snap one picture, then shot up and out of sight. When later stopped in a store to tell the owner of the UFO photo he had taken, the store owner listened, revealed how he had been a victim, cattle rancher, and cattle mutes. Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call, after which the store owner told John to leave at once, then closed the store after John went to his car. John then saw a mysterious van drive up to the store. The man got out and went in. John decided to leave Doulce at that moment, but was followed by 2 men in a car as he left town. Even more recently, a research team gone up to the Archuleta Mesa to take sounds under the ground, and preliminary and tentative computer analysis of these soundings seem to indicate deep cavities under the mesa. One source has stated that according to the data received, these cavities extend to the depth of 4,000 feet. Perhaps someday we will discover the deep dark secret of Doulce. Whatever the future brings, it won't be dull.
Have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed tonight's second bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.